Good evening, welcome back to the channel. You find us here on Friday night and we're not going clubbing, we're not going to the pub. Molly and I are back out on the trail, going to try and get our steps in. And this evening you find us in West Sussex, back in West Sussex. We're at Kingley Vale today and the time is just gone 8:30, I think. Maybe slightly earlier than that, and we're just heading up for hopefully what will be a lovely evening walk up to the Devil's Humps in Kingley Vale. Very surprise historical area. It's our favourite type on this channel, and we start the walk from a little car park close to a very small village called West Stoke, and we're currently heading approximately northbound up a good gravel track that's going to lead us into Kingley Vale itself. And there's loads to see and do in Kingley Vale. Ancient yew tree forests, some of the largest collection of ancient yew trees as well, potentially in the country, and some of them are up to 2,000 years old. So lots of history, lots of myths and legends. And yeah, Kingley Vale is also supposed to be extremely haunted. I've walked this route many times. I used to live very close to this route, just a couple of miles away in a village called Fishbourne. And yeah, this was a local haunt. I used to bring my old dog here for walks every other week, probably at least. And in that time, can't recall ever seeing a ghost, but you never know. I did have a late night up here once where the sun had already set and gone down by the time we were making our way back off the hillside, and walking through the yew tree forest, or the forest on the sort of west side of Kingley Vale on the way down after dark was very eerie, to say the least. Definitely an atmosphere, but definitely didn't see any Vikings or Roman soldiers or any of the other ghosts and apparitions that are supposed to haunt this here vale. So we're going to make some tracks, and you'll join us a little bit further along into the walk when we come up to our first bit of woodland, and we'll talk a little bit more about the route, and I'll perhaps also touch on the week I've had, how the weight loss is going. Spoiler alert, not gone well this week, but there we are. Yeah, we'll pick it up again in a moment. See you in a bit. So I think I mentioned this week's not been too great on the health and fitness front, and it's been a week of two halves really. In terms of my professional career, it's been a great week, and been up to some fun things, meeting some really interesting people and doing some really fun and engaging work. However, on the diet front, not so good. It's been really hot this week in the UK. Even today we're up to 30 degrees down here on the south coast, and thankfully it's starting to cool off a bit now. But I've sort of had a strange mix of feeling a little bit under the weather. Don't know if it's been hay fever or some sort of, cold or man flu thing, mixed with the high temperatures. And I've definitely been down on steps, which has not been ideal. It's made me feel a little bit like I've been sort of shirking my responsibilities this week on that front. And as you can probably tell, I'm paying for it this evening, so I don't feel necessarily on top of the world. So about a quarter of a mile ago, back that way, we met with the forest. We've actually turned right. This takes us sort of broadly east, and then we follow these series of trackways. And just behind me, here, just off shop there, is the path we'll be taking up the east shoulder of Kingley Vale. The hill itself. This is a way that, there's a few different ways you can take up the hill, but this way is a nice one, and especially on an evening like this, because it's all rather panoramic and you get a really lovely view of the sun setting, which, as you can see, is really special this evening. Well, we've gained a little bit of elevation now, and my legs are certainly starting to feel it. But we open up this wonderful view down to the southeast, and we can see all the way down to Chichester Harbour, Emsworth, the coastline over there, Culver Cliff, which we were also able to see from Bignor Hill in the episode before last. And Bignor Hill, I think, get some bearings, is off in this direction somewhere. Fair few miles that way, but we had a similar view out to the south, and the Isle of Wight again visible today, which is lovely. We're just going to carry on up this direction. As I say, we're increasing in altitude now, working our way up to the Devil's Humps, where I suspect we'll be there, the rate I'm managing this evening, probably in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so of climbing. Well, there we are, guys. Excuse the breathing. I'm just getting to the top of this hill. And it really is, it's a long burner for me, weighing just over 25 stone as I do. However, I've found Bignor Hill. So just at the end of my finger there, there's the two radio masts up on top of the hill. That's just to the east of our position, few mile off. So yeah, that's where we were in I think episode 2, episode 3. I don't know, I've lost track. Anyway, let's get this hill cracked, and you'll join us again where me and Molly get to the Devil's Humps. Well guys, I'm pleased to say we're pretty much at the summit of what is actually called Bow Hill. 203 metres I think. And yeah, it's a little bit of a slog up that eastern face, but if there's anyone watching that does this walk or wants to do this walk, over the years I've definitely found that east shoulder to be much less frequented than most people tend to take the main route up through the valley. And so if you want a bit of a quieter walk, one where you'll maybe encounter a few less people, it's a good way to go. But it's a bit of a sustained, slog. People much fitter than me would have no problems at all. I'm quite proud of myself for getting out this evening because I very nearly didn't. Friday night, my wife is out with some work friends and colleagues this evening, and traditionally that would have been green lit for getting a few beers in, getting a pizza or a Chinese takeaway in, and setting camp up in the living room for the evening and just relaxing, having the house to myself. But this evening I've forced myself off the sofa and got out into the hills. And it just kind of goes to show, really, you shouldn't wait for things to feel perfect. You shouldn't think, oh, well, I don't feel 100% fit, or I'm a little bit tired, or, like me this week, I've had some sort of virus or something for a few days, been feeling really off. And it would have been quite easy for me to make excuses and to back out, but now I'm out here, I'm doing it, and okay, the climb wasn't the easiest in the world, but it never is. And here we are now at the top, and for a little bit we are on the flat, and we're going to get round to the Devil's Humps, enjoy a bit of a panoramic view, which is special. It's a lovely one, and then work our way back downhill, down the western slopes. And there's so many interesting stories connected with Kingley Vale, and to get some of the factual accuracy correct, I'll probably do a bit of a voiceover to talk about most of it. But needless to say, much like a lot of the sites that we've visited so far on this channel, there is a mix of extremely ancient Iron Age, Bronze Age history involving kings, queens, battles, all the cool stuff, and also some World War II stuff, which is, I think it's fair to say, Kingley Vale is not famous for its World War II stories, apart from maybe more local folk, but it's actually fascinating, and there's some really cool stuff still hidden away in the forest in Kingley Vale amongst the yew trees. Oh, here we go, guys. First of the yew trees that we see. One of the gnarly ones on the side of the walk here. Incidentally, what drew my attention to it was something just down in that direction off to the left. There was definitely a dark shadow moving through the woods. Creepy, eh? Absolutely certain it's a deer, or a fox, or a badger. However, there are stories, and some of these stories, I think most of them actually, backed up by archaeological evidence. But there was supposedly a battle between some local Chichester men, which is the city closest by to Kingley Vale, a very ancient Roman city in its own right, and goes back even further than that, I think. But there was a battle up here between some Viking warlords and some local men from Chichester, and the Chichester men were victorious and slayed many Vikings up on these hills here. And supposedly, the story goes, the Devil's Humps are tumuli, or I think Iron Age or Bronze Age, I'll have to check on that, barrows. And they are supposedly the resting places of these Viking kings that were murdered or killed during this battle. However, the rest of the Viking warriors were slain in these woods all around, and their bodies are said to be laid to rest under these yew trees, just like this one coming up on the right. And so the story goes, when nighttime comes around, as it rapidly is doing right now, these Viking warriors come out seeking their revenge on local men. Let me know if you can spot one in the comments. I would say, as we're just approaching the summit, the plateau now where the Devil's Humps are, just ahead, there's a few people just enjoying the scenery, as we will be in a minute. And they were laid to rest in one of the most spectacular spots you could imagine, really. The camera will not do it justice, but the views up here are absolutely world class. So in this direction, we're looking down on Chichester, and just off in the distance, you probably won't be able to see it, but it's almost dead ahead, is Chichester Cathedral, the big spire sticking up towards the heavens. And then off in this direction, we're looking north, and obviously out to the west where the sun is setting over there. But where the eastern and western flanks of Kingley Vale have a really, particularly later in the evening when you're on your own with just a cockapoo for security, they really do have a feel about them, the forests. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not necessarily, a believer. I've certainly had some experiences in my time that I can't explain. But the feeling you get in the woods up here in the evening is really quite something. It's a definite, to me anyway, it's a definite ancient feeling. It's a feeling that whatever haunts this hallowed ground is, thousands of years old. It just really has that feel about it. Just up ahead, the woodland up ahead, this is the northwest sort of corner, and they're heading down the sort of western arm of the valley back down towards the car, which is just off down the hill in that direction. And there's, in those woods, a lot of World War II stuff, which I'll do a little voiceover now and explain a bit more about once we get up to the top of the humps here, and we'll take a look at the panoramic view. Well, I'm at the voiceover here. So up on Bow Hill, beneath the twisted yews of Kingley Vale, you're walking through thousands of years of history, as we've seen. This land has always been watched, walked and fought over. The Devil's Humps, the grassy barrows on the ridge, are Bronze Age burial mounds, likely for tribal chiefs from over 3,000 years ago. Nearby, Goose Hill Camp hides earthworks of an Iron Age settlement. Even the Vikings left their mark here. As legend has it, these mounds are the graves of Viking warriors, as I've said, cut down in the battle with the Saxons.
But the silence here hasn't always been peaceful. Fast forward to the 20th century and Kingley Vale became a training ground for troops preparing for war once again. In World War II, Canadian and British soldiers came here to train with live ammunition, rifles, mortars and bayonets, all in preparation for D-Day. This valley also hid one of Churchill's secret auxiliary units, the West Stoke Patrol. Their job, to vanish underground and strike back if the Nazis ever landed. Their hidden observation posts still cling to the Western Ridge. By the war's end, the ground was littered with unexploded ordnance. A full clearance in 1990 recovered over 6,000 munitions, but even now, shells still turn up from time to time. Most who walk here today only see the trees, but these woods remember, and if you take your time, you'll feel it, the weight of history beneath your boots.
Well, that's it, guys. The Devil's Humps. And we're leaving the sunset behind us now to the north as we head back down the western arm and put our southings back in. And another mile or two we'll be back to the truck. But this is where things get a bit darker and definitely a bit moodier as we work our way down back into the ancient yew forest. This portion of the nature reserve used to be full of very spectacular ash trees, but unfortunately over time ash dieback disease has had a real impact, and I think most, if not all, basically of the ash trees in the park have succumbed and disappeared, which is a shame. But many of the yew trees remain, and that's what we're about to journey through now on our way back down. So guys, I've just taken a little detour off the path just into the yew tree woodland here, just to show you some of the ambience. Very, very atmospheric this time of the evening. And somewhere hidden around here, I'd love to find them one day when we've got a bit more time. There are some hidden Second World War bunkers, some auxiliary bunkers that I believe British and Canadian troops dug out shortly before D-Day, just in case the Nazis were able to invade Britain. They set up these bunkers and networks of hidden places where guerrilla resistance could be sort of meted against any invading armies. And yeah, there's somewhere hidden up in these woods here. At least one of them is actually accessible, so I understand. And there's like a manhole-sized hole in the ground that you can climb down into, and it's all still pretty much intact from what I've seen, and even some artifacts and things left inside, but I have no idea where they are. And yeah, probably best their locations, even if I did know, probably best stayed secret, stop them being frequented by the wrong sort of folk. There are also on the lower slopes as well a number of dugouts that still have some remnants, but again, I've never come across them myself. I think you have to venture, in the right direction either side of the pathway here, and have a pretty good idea where they are. Otherwise, I think you'd be wandering around for a long time trying to find them. So we're working our way down now, sort of heading back in an approximately southerly direction, and it's pretty much downhill from here all the way back to the truck, which is good. as you can see, Molly's reverted to type. Found herself a good stick. I popped her back on her lead because, I mean, in theory, national parks, she should be on her lead quite a lot anyway. But also, since we saw that shadow the other side of the humps, which I'm pretty sure was a deer, it made me realise very likely that there are deer around here. In fact, I know there are. I've seen them up here many times before. And Molly does tend to like to chase them when she sees them. And we're now well past 9 o'clock. I think it's probably 20 past 9 or something. So I don't really want to wait around while Molly runs half of the county through the woods chasing after deer. Not good for the deer either. And we want to try and be good countryside citizens best we can. This way, Molly. You got it. You won't be able to see through behind me, but there is, when you're actually here, there's some nice views. This is quite steep-sided, this bit, and there's some really lovely views down to the valley floor. Every so often, just when the gaps in the trees sort of line up correctly, see some really nice views down to the open countryside below. But where we are here, it's mostly sort of tunnelled in, and yeah, just sort of tree-lined either side. I can definitely see why in the Second World War they chose to make some dugouts up here. So one thing I have decided to do this week, which was a positive step forward, is a charity fundraising event called the Weighted Walk in July, 150 miles in July, with a pack on your back to raise money for Help for Heroes. Now, I've mentioned, I think maybe once or twice, my keenness to support our armed forces, our servicemen and women, our emergency services, and all the pieces just seem to fit together. I mean, I'm literally in the early stages of trying to get my steps up, trying to get out walking a lot more, and pretty much always got this rucksack on my back because I carry a few basics when I'm walking. Got a first aid kit in there, got some water for me, water for the dog, got some treats for the dog, poo bags, a warm layer, you know, brew kit sometimes, bits and bobs like that. And so I kind of fit the bill. And basically it works out, obviously there's 31 days in July, and it works out you've got to walk about 5 miles a day. It's 4.8 miles a day, I think, on average. So that's going to be tough, and I'll be quite honest, I have no idea if I'm actually going to achieve it. My goal at the moment is to attempt it. Never entered anything like that before. Never done anything like that before, really. So, providing I can get, you know, some miles down in July will be a massive win. That's what I'm going for. But with my treadmill at home, I've got a treadmill, fairly newly purchased, only a few months old in the garage. I was thinking, look, at the very least, on the days when I'm not out doing this type of stuff, which, I mean, today we'll probably do at least 5 miles. Yeah, I'll have to look at the map for the exact route, but you know, it'll be up there, 4.5, 5 miles. And on the days that I'm not out doing this, I can get on the treadmill, perhaps do 2.5 miles in the morning, 2.5 miles in the evening, and try and clock it up that way. Honestly, at 25 stone, I don't know how achievable 5 miles every single day, 7 days a week is. I'm going to have to be careful, listen to my body, make sure that my knees and my ankles and my hips and my back and everything else is up for the challenge. I mean, I tend to do pretty well, I think, to be fair, for my size. I think, as Cartman used to say in South Park, I'm big boned. So yes, drastically overweight, but I think I've got a reasonably decent skeleton and muscle structure underneath to kind of hold it all up and keep me going as I am. So hopefully it'll be fine, but I mean, the learning point from this week, 100%, is I've got to double down on the diet, really. I've really got to put a focus on diet, nutrition, functional exercise. So I've just ordered some resistance bands from the good old Jungle Web's place, and yeah, so I'll start using those basically because I've had some shoulder pain that I want to try and address, and also things like my glutes, which I just need to start working back into existence because the amount of sitting down that I do for my job, is really taking its toll on those. So yeah, hopefully sort of program of resistance bands will really help me there. And it just so happens that my good lady wife Gemma is an occupational therapist, so she does functional rehabilitation for a living, runs her own business doing that. So yeah, I have an expert on hand to make sure that I'm doing things correctly. I've always struggled with my weight my whole life, but for a lot of my 20s and early 30s I had it pretty well managed actually, and the most adventurous sort of part of my career when I was working at sea and down in the polar regions and doing all the exciting stuff. I was 13 stone, very, very fit with it. No stranger to the gym, no stranger to lifting weights. When I was young, I used to do karate, and turned my hand at sort of, a few different sports, rugby and boxing and things as well in the past. And yeah, it's only really been the last 10, 12 years that, last 10 years that my weight has just crept up. And now it's, it's in pretty appalling state. And hence the reason for the channel starting in the first place and really forcing myself out of, I mean, guys, you can't even call it a comfort zone, to be fair. It's an uncomfort zone. That's what it is. It's like life at 25 stone, man. It is hard. It is hard every day. Just getting out of bed, getting up the stairs, getting in the truck, getting out of the truck. Everything hurts. Everything is, pretty difficult. And it just really shouldn't be. I'm only 40. I should be prime of my life right now, and that's the goal. That's where we need to get back to. So we just need to keep doing this, more of this. It's really going to help. And there's Molly. Absolutely no weight problems whatsoever. I think she weighs a grand total of about 6 kilograms. So guys, we're joining back to the track where we kind of started. So just along the bottom where that clump of trees are, just in the middle of the field there, that runs its way off to the right, and that's the track that we first came up from, where the truck's parked. So I would say from here we're probably 20 minutes back to the truck, and that'll be the end of what has been a really lovely, very peaceful, and I have to say probably ghost-free trek up to watch the sunset at the top of Kingley Vale. So thanks so much for joining along.